Nuclear irresponsibility. On the 26th of April 1986, an accident occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. A reactor of the operating nuclear power station exploded. At the same time, the Soviet authorities denied the accident for 10 days, withholding information from the public and partners. As a result, thousands of people were left without a chance to escape radiation exposure. In Ukraine alone, up to 2 million people have the official status of disaster victims. An area of almost 160,000 square kilometers was contaminated. This is larger than the whole of England. This was the first time in history when Moscow showed an irresponsible attitude to the issue of nuclear safety in the world. In February 2023, the International Atomic Energy Agency published a report containing a list of nuclear incidents caused by Russia during the full-scale war. The timeline shows that almost every day there were events that threatened the world's nuclear security. International law prohibits the seizure of nuclear power plants as it poses a danger to humanity. But the Russian army occupied the Chernobyl zone and seized the Chernobyl nuclear power plant on the very first day of the invasion. The Zaporizhzhia NPP was the next to be occupied by Russia. This plant is the largest in Europe and one of the 10 largest in the world. The Russians did not just enter the territory of this nuclear plant. They began the seizure of the plant by shelling it with heavy weapons. The shelling even provoked a fire on the territory of the nuclear plant. After the occupation, the Russians turned the plant into a real military base. They disconnected the radiation monitoring sensors, they mined the area around the station, they dug trenches along the perimeter and set up their firing positions. The occupiers placed their military equipment in the turbine rooms of the power units, next to the nuclear reactor. At the time of this video, the station had been under occupation for almost 2 years. A recent report by the International Atomic Energy Agency states directly, the security situation at ZNPP is extremely fragile and the possibility of a nuclear disaster is very real. Nuclear blackmail has been normalized in Russia for years through propaganda and statements made by political leaders. In 2014, the well-known propagandist Dmitry Kiselyov stated, "Russia is the only country in the world capable of turning the USA into radioactive ash." Russian propaganda has also threatened the UK with its nuclear missiles. This island is so small that even one RS-28 Sarmat missile is enough to sink it once and for all. As people continue being pumped up with apocalyptic narratives, the use of nuclear weapons is gradually being perceived as something totally acceptable. So no one protested when the head of one of Russia's regions, Ramzan Kadyrov, called on the authorities to attack Ukraine with nuclear weapons. And it is Putin himself who plays first fiddle and sets the tone. On February 24th, the first day of the Russian invasion, Putin said, "Today's Russia remains one of the most powerful nuclear states. Whoever tries to stand in the way of Russia will face consequences never seen in history." On the 27th of February 2022, when Putin realized that he had failed to capture Kyiv in 3 days, he remembered the nuclear weapons. Putin ordered the Russian deterrent nuclear forces to be put on full alert. Then, just as easily, he suspended Russia's participation in the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. This is an international agreement that limits the number of deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, that both the United States and Russia can have. Putin does not limit himself to the territory of the Russian Federation. He has moved nuclear weapons to the territory of Belarus. In this way, nuclear missiles have come very close to the European Union. So, can nuclear weapons be safe in the hands of people who think it is normal to shoot at nuclear facilities or threaten to shoot at sovereign countries? Such behavior is irresponsible. If this is a game for the Kremlin, then the aggressor must understand that he can lose, that threats no longer work, and the civilized world is united in condemning this nuclear blackmail and has a relevant system of checks and balances to counter it.